What if I told you that Hamilton's arrival to Ferrari was rejected by 90% of the team? How would that affect the performance of one of the most successful pilots in history? What has been hiding in Maranello is now coming to light, and is more serious than you imagine. When Ferrari announced the signing of Lewis Hamilton for the 2025 season, the world of motoring was stunned. It was a media blow, one of those movements that transcend the sport and occupy headlines globally. A heptacampion of the world, the face of an era in Mercedes, left the meticulously technical and rational environment of Brackley to embark on the emotional and traditionalist adventure of Maranello. The news was celebrated by the media and fans as an alliance of giants, a convergence of history, talent, and ambition. But within Ferrari, the reaction was very different. The image that was projected outside was that of a perfect marriage. But what was brewing inside was a silent storm. Arturo Merzario, former Ferrari pilot and appears in a respected voice in the paddock, exhibited it without surroundings. 90% of Ferrari staff was actively opposed to the arrival of Hamilton. That figure was not thrown into the air as a media exaggeration. It reflects a real, deep and generalized feeling. What from the outside seemed a logical evolution of the team, from within it was perceived as an imposition outside its essence. Ferrari is not simply a Formula One. It is a national symbol, an institution that represents very specific values: pride, belonging, Italian identity. Therefore, any external high-profile incorporation, especially one as significant as Hamilton's, is always observed with magnifying glass. But what activated internal resistance was not only the origin of the pilot or its fame. It was the nature of the movement. For many within the organization, Hamilton hiring did not respond to a sports need, but to an image strategy, marketing, pressure from above to give investors a blow to the investors and the global narrative of the brand. This perception was especially painful for those team members who have been committed to the Ferrari technical project. They did not see in Hamilton a solution, but a threat to the continuity of the work they had been developing with Leclerc and before with Sainz and Vettel. They felt that their knowledge, their progress, and their identity as a group were displaced by a figure that came with the star aura and the expectation that everything would revolve around him. And that is not a lower emotional reaction. In a Formula One team, human capital is as important as the technician. Synergy between engineers, strategists, and pilots is based on mutual trust. If a large part of the staff feels that you cannot trust the new team leader for technical, cultural, or even personal reasons, the impact on performance is inevitable. Because the F1 is not just a speed sport, it is an environment where the confidence between the actors defines the effectiveness with which they develop, execute, and adjust the career decisions after career. The controversy remained out of the focus during the preseason tests. Hamilton appeared smiling, the team repeated that they were excited with the new beginning, and Leclerc publicly assumed a conciliatory role. But after the first races, the results began to speak stronger than the statements. And then Merzario's words charged an uncomfortable weight. It was no longer a theory. It was a plausible explanation to the disconnection that everyone began to notice between Hamilton and its technical environment. The signals were there from the beginning. The lack of chemistry in engineering meetings. The strategic decisions that seemed to go against Hamilton's criteria. The sessions in which its feedback did not generate immediate adjustments. And above all, the difference in treatment that many observed between what was said in public and what was really practiced in the garage. The signing that should be a winning synergy was becoming an insulating experience for the British pilot. This is not an isolated episode in Ferrari's history. It has already happened before. The Scuderia has had moments where its corporate decisions have gone against its internal cohesion. But Hamilton has a different dimension. Because before, such a resounding and generalized opposition had been seen from within, just at the time they needed unity to aspire to a title. What should have been a consolidation project was born with deep internal fractures. And now the team is paying career after career. Even Juan Pablo Montoya, who knows as few the internal tension of large teams, clearly described it. There is an internal fight in Ferrari among those who believe they must adapt to Hamilton and those who want Hamilton to adapt to Ferrari. This identity dilemma is the core of the problem. Because as long as it is not resolved, no technical improvement can cover the fracture that exists in the heart of the equipment. After 14 races in the 2025 season, Lewis Hamilton has not managed to get on the podium or once, a statistic that in any other context would be simply surprising, but that in his case is directly alarming. For a pilot who arrived with 7 championships in his pocket, with a reputation for perfectionism and technical demand, this present is unacceptable. But beyond its personal performance, the real problem is what these results say about Ferrari as an organization. Because on the other side of the garage, Charles Leclerc has achieved 5 podiums. Same car, same team, same theoretical strategy. How is it possible then that there is such a difference in performance between them? The answer is not only in the pilot, but in the mutual trust that exists between Leclerc and the technical environment that surrounds it. Leclerc is a Ferrari product, a molded pilot and protected from the academy. His feedback is heard, his preferences are respected, and the team decisions revolve many times around him. With Hamilton, on the other hand, that dynamic has never been established. And it is not for lack of will of the pilot, but because he was never given the same space to exercise leadership. One of the most symbolic moments of this internal crisis was the Hungary Grand Prix, where Hamilton, visibly frustrated, described himself as useless, absolutely useless. But that phrase was not just a hot emotional expression. It was the verbal manifestation of a pilot who feels that his voice has no echo within his own team. That when he points out a problem with the car, he does not act urgently. That when proposed by strategic modification, it is ruled out without major discussion. And this lack of synergy between pilot and team has direct repercussions in the race. In Australia, Ferrari made an elementary strategic mistake by leaving Hamilton on track during a critical rain window, while the rest of the teams entered boxes to change tires. The result was devastating. Hamilton was trapped in traffic, lost rhythm, and any possibility of comeback disappeared. It was not a coincidence. It was the consequence of a broken communication, of a relationship in which the pilot and the team do not share either the times or the priorities. But the problem is not limited to the strategic plane. At the technical level, the updates that were promised as fundamental to improve Hamilton's performance have been systematically delayed or modified. This has generated a vicious circle. The pilot has no confidence in the car, the team does not respond quickly to their needs, and the results remain mediocre. Frustration increases, and with it, the isolation of the pilot within the structure. Fred Vasseur, the team director, has tried to minimize the situation, declaring that it is a phase of adaptation and learning. But the truth is that, behind the cameras, the pressure is already unsustainable. Because Ferrari did not sign Hamilton to learn, he signed him to win. And so far, the only thing the equipment has won is a new layer of internal tension. Ferrari's case is not unique, but it is especially sensitive. Because the Scuderia has been trying to leave a self-destruction cycle where management errors weigh more than technical decisions. And this season, which promised to be the turning point with the arrival of Hamilton, it is becoming another disappointment page in the team's recent history. The talent is there. Resources too. What is missing is something that no investment can buy: cohesion, shared leadership, and equipment culture. If Ferrari does not find a way to align its structure with the figure that it brought to lead it, the outcome will be inevitable. It's not just that Hamilton can leave. It is that, with him, the opportunity will also go to the top in an era where the level of technical and mental demand has never been so high. Formula One's 2025 season should be a renaissance for Ferrari. A new era. A new leader. A name capable of dragging millions of eyes towards Maranello and returning to the Scuderia the glory that has been escaped for more than a decade. Lewis Hamilton was the total bet. A sports icon, a living legend, a man accustomed to winning. But reality has shown that no name, however great, can be imposed on a structure that is not prepared to receive it. The arrival of Hamilton has not only solved Ferrari's problems, he has exposed them crudely. He has evidenced internal resistance, organizational contradictions, and the lack of a cohesive project. What should be a historical collaboration between talent and tradition is falling apart under the weight of mutual distrust. And the question is no longer whether Hamilton can adapt to Ferrari. It is if Ferrari really wants to transform himself to take advantage of Hamilton. Because if it does not, this will be one of the most wasted opportunities in the recent history of sport. Not only because of the podiums that are being lost, but because having worldwide heptacampion in your team and not knowing how to integrate it is not a technical failure. It is an institutional failure. Meanwhile, other teams evolve. McLaren is consolidated as the technical reference. Mercedes is rebuilt with patience and precision. Red Bull, although unstable, is still a fearsome rival. In that scenario, Ferrari is stagnant between the past that does not want to release and the future that does not know how to hug. And now I leave you with this question. Not by way of closing, but as a starting point for the true debate. Do you think Ferrari is willing to change his DNA to build a team around Hamilton? Or are we seeing the prelude to an inevitable breakup that will only bring frustration for both parties? Leave me your opinion below. Should Hamilton endure and insist on transforming from within a culture that rejects it? Or should I look for a decent exit before it's too late? Because what is at stake is not just a pilot's legacy.